Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Unravel Your Mind. I'm so happy you're here. We're going to be transforming relationships to love and life. We've got a ton of questions coming up, and I just want to say that if you're on with me live, I will always prioritize the live questions and the live callers. So please feel free to put a question in the comments. If you're watching on replay, then also I would love to hear from you, and you can go to bethbell.me/question and ask your question there. But if you're on with me live, please put it in the comments and I'll be happy to ask it while we're on live right now. All right, let's get started. We're going to jump into question number 1. This one's kind of a long one, but it's a good one, so stay tuned here. My son is a younger cohort. My son is a younger cohort of his grade. What makes this difficult is that half of the boys in his sports activities are 15 and muscular. My son has not gone through puberty. He's growing taller and his feet are getting bigger. The things he wants, as in the voice change and bulky muscles, have not occurred. Of course, these things will happen, but that means nothing right now when it's more important to excel in sports and eventually start dating. We all know he will be a man for the rest of his life, but this is when it seems to matter the most. I don't talk about it and I don't focus on it, but it is in the back of my head, and I know it's what frustrates him, and when he's benched or not considered for something on his team. Besides manifesting that he gets his growth spurt this summer, wink, what else can we do while waiting? Well, there's 2 words that pop to mind right away, and they seem kind of bizarre, but I'll explain. Flowers and chakras. What do they have to do with puberty? Well, first of all, I'll say that, as we know, teenagers are so hard sometimes to connect to because they don't want to talk to you unless it's something that means a lot to them. So this seems like a really great topic that you might actually get some traction on, having some of those really good, juicy, conscious conversations about life. And, whether you use this analogy or not, it's what's coming to mind that, we can't force a flower to blossom, right? Just as we don't force puberty to happen, whether it's a young girl that's wanting her menses or not wanting her menses, or a young man who's really wanting to step into those hormones. So it feels like a great opportunity to bring the power of Mother Nature and the analogy of surrendering into divine timing. And depending upon your religious beliefs and how you feel about incorporating the concept of source intelligence or God, it just feels appropriate that we are not in control of this universe. And it could be a huge opportunity to use puberty as like that touch base point to just start talking about the energies, and that it's really in divine timing that all of these things happen. And also getting into, when we say energies, the energies of the chakras, because when those hormones kick in, so not only, and I'm sure you've already had these conversations about testosterone, not only are we talking about the sex hormones that come on board, but we're also talking about how the different chakras in our body are starting to wake up and pulling through energy, right? That might be a great way to get into the second chakra, to start talking about sexual energy. I don't know where you're at with that and if you've had all of those conversations, but we know that with testosterone comes the muscles, comes the lower voice, but also comes the sexual energy and the sex drive, simply because of the testosterone, right? They're becoming a young man and they're moving into a whole different realm. So it feels like an incredible opportunity to talk about like some really deep stuff and leverage something that he cares a lot about, but you're like putting that mom spin of like the sex talk, the energy talk, the source intelligence talk, how we want to be in the flow of life and not try to force things. The other thing that comes to mind, I'm just going to say it because it's coming in strong, is that as the mom, there may be an aspect of you that needs to let go of the idea that your young child, who you know is not young anymore, is moving into his manhood. And as a mother, that is a really critical time to really let go. I mean, there's a lot of religious ceremonies around this where, we're really honoring young men stepping into their manlyhood. And so there's a lot there for a mom to really see her child become less and less dependent on her. And so I'm not saying you're causing it to not happen. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, from you and your energy, because if it's in the back of your mind, it is there. But I just wonder if there's not like a little seed in there about not wanting him to grow up and not wanting to see him get older, even though I know you do, right? Like we all do. We want to see our kids grow, but there is that another level of letting go and really allowing that independence that comes with those sex hormones. And yeah, so feel into that. If that's relevant for you, maybe just do a little bit of your own like shifting and meditate on that and just see how you can really join from an energetic place with your son and with his manlyhood. And maybe there is something in your religious affiliation that you can do to really honor this manlyhood and have it be something to look forward to, but not something that's forced, something that's a blessing that comes in divine timing. That might help too, to bring in some aspect of a ceremonial leading up to it, and really getting into the lessons of what comes with manlyhood. So I hope that helps. That's really exciting. I can't wait. And I hope you come back on the show and let us know when it all happens for him. And then there'll be so many more questions, right, that come as a result of moving through puberty. So thank you for asking that one. All right, let's move on to the next question. Any recommendations on how to connect with Mother Nature? When I go sit on a park bench, I don't really feel anything. Yeah, thanks for your honesty on that, because I know that a lot of people talk about, go sit in nature. And I too, for many years, I felt nice in a quiet space, but I wasn't necessarily getting anything many years ago until I picked up my camera. I'm not saying that you have to do this, but I'm using it as an example that when I started picking up my camera several years ago, I don't know, maybe over 20 years ago, I started photographing flowers up close. This was before we had the beautiful iPhones and the handheld phones that had such great cameras. So I had like the big old clunky camera, and I could zoom in and get these really awesome clear pictures. And why that's relevant to the question is that it brought me into a way of quieting my mind. And I call it observational flower photography because it helped me to observe the details of the flower in that moment. And I also got the same effect later when I went in to edit the photos. It was such an amazing experience. Still is today. I don't do it as often. Maybe I should. Maybe that's the reason someone's asking me the question, is so I can remind myself about really just feeling into the energy of the flower. So if you're in nature, I would find a flower. I would look at it very closely. I would consider, the lessons that flower has to teach you, and the beauty of the flower in its effortlessness to exist by just being a flower, and how as humans we can just be ourselves, and the beauty in the freedom in loving ourselves so much that we can just be and not feel like we have to do something or make ourselves into something or have some label or whatever. So there's so many lessons in nature. And I think if it's not a flower, you can also look at a blade of grass. I know there's a spot where I walk by in the mornings when it's colder or it's been rainy, and there's all these spider webs that are on top of this brush. And it's this intricate spider web that has all these little water bubbles on it. And I just stop and I look, and I just am fascinated by the surface tension and just how it all fits together. And it's so beautiful, and how the little raindrops are actually capturing so many different dynamics of the sunlight. And, you can really fall into this meditative place just out of childlike curiosity for what Mother Nature has on display. So it doesn't have to be that you have some big magnificent view, which is also great, right? If you can go out and see the ocean, like I have this beautiful ability to do. If you're not by the ocean, there's still a place you can go that has some element of Mother Nature. And if you're in a high rise and you're in a, like New York City or something, and you feel like the park is too far away, then go out and buy yourself a beautiful plant. Put it on your patio, put it on in your house, just really look at the plant and look at the veins in the leaves. I mean, as children, we did this. We looked at this level of detail in complete awe and wonder. And it's getting back to that childlike curiosity that just quiets the mind and takes away, that whole idea that we have to be doing something all the time. So if you're sitting on a park bench, look at a flower, bring a flower with you, or just feel the breeze. Sometimes sitting and just experiencing the breeze and noticing your breath, right? Just feeling into you as a human and your connection to the air can bring your awareness back to your body and less in your mind and more in your heart. So bring that into your heart. All right, so lots of ways you can connect, and if you want more, I'm happy to give them, but I think that'll get you started on how to maximize your time on a park bench. It is definitely worth it to spend 15 minutes a day or more just being in nature. And if you can take your shoes off and put, if it's not too cold or whatever, and really just put your feet on the ground and get some really great grounding energy from Mother Earth, that's also really fabulous. Okay, let's go on to the next question. My question for today's show is, how do we know when we are making up stories in our head, and how to get out of that and see reality as others see the picture? Well, others are always going to be showing you your reality because you're asking them to be that mirror and that reflection. So if you're seeing something, they're reflecting something to you. I think there's two parts to this question, actually, because it says, how do we know when we are making up stories in our head? Well, we're always making up stories in our head. Everything is a story, right? Everything that we're doing every day involves a story of some kind. So it's about being present and being in that moment. So that's number one, right? That's how we stop the stories, because they're just ideas about ourselves and others. They're judgments, and it's just expanding our awareness to not be in that judgment of ourselves or others. So that's number one. And then number two, I think, just to get more into, how do we get out of our head and see realities as others see the picture? And I would say, I wouldn't try to see how others see the picture, because you're the creator of your life, and you're the one that's projecting out to others to play these roles for you and to tell you things and to say things to you. I'll give kind of an interesting example that comes to mind. It's a little bit off from this, but I recently went to a TEDx, and I was interested to go and say hello to one of the speakers, because I've watched some of her videos, and she's a pretty well-known influencer, actually. And so I was excited just to say hi. And there was something that had happened during the talk, so I wanted to also just, go up and ask about that. And so I did. And it was like, a lighthearted, very low key, going to say thanks for your talk and ask her that quick question about, whether this little snag was intended or not, because she did such a great job recovering, and really lighthearted. And she asked, well, what do you do? And I said, oh, well, I'm an author. And so it led to me saying that the title of my book was Angels, Herpes, and Psychedelics: Unraveling the Mind to Unveil Illusions. And she, like, really strangely almost, and these aren't the exact words because I can't remember exactly, but pretty close, she said, oh, you people, enlightened people, you're no fun. You just meditate for 3 hours and drink green juice. You're no fun. And it was like, it was so jolting to me. I was like, wow. I mean, it's not only someone that I respect, but like, I had no idea like what I was doing that would elicit such a response in a way that basically she was looking at me simply by the title of my book, stating the title of my book. I didn't even talk about what was in the book. And and she just came at me with this real, a dear friend of mine was standing there, who's also very much on a deep spiritual journey and enlightened. She says, well, I'm enlightened and I have a lot of fun. And I said, oh gosh, it sounds like maybe you just haven't, been in the circles of enlightened people that have a lot of fun. And so it hit me, and I was like really disappointed about that. And so in deeper reflection, I'm like, okay, I'm asking this woman. Yes, of course, there's something I probably triggered in her, and that's fine. But what was the lesson for me? I didn't want to focus on like just what she said and how it made me feel. I want, hey, well, why would I ask her to say that to me? Why would I ask her to sort of kind of rudely like dismiss me? And I was like, oh, well, maybe I'm not having as much fun as I could. But it was interesting and ironic because I have a candle for each month with a word on it. And the candle for this month was fun. So, hey, it's a theme, and it's like a reflection back from the universe, and just a reminder, right, that fun is so important on this spiritual journey. So yeah, I think just listen and observe, like, what are people saying to you? And then be in the lightheartedness of it, because sometimes it comes at us hard and it doesn't feel good. It's not even the words they say. Sometimes it's the energy that they project onto you. And a lot of times it's their trigger, but they're still saying something that has some nugget. There's something in there that would be for you. And so that's what I took away from this situation, which could have just led to a lot of disappointment, because I was disappointed in that moment because I didn't feel nice about how she came at me, and it was unexpected. But yeah, you're creating your reality. So keep creating and keep observing, so that we don't take all these things so, so seriously, and we just have more fun. All right, let's go on to the next question. I am in a very stressful time in my work and life transition, and have several friends also going through challenging personal times. How do I show up for my friends while also taking care of myself? Yeah, this is the oxygen mask again, right? It's always about, we've got to put our own oxygen mask on first. And I think the thing that's really important is that we're just transparent, and that we're coming from a loving place. And I know that you are, I feel that. And so let me just expand on that to say that it's communication, right? It's, oh, dear soul sister, I know you're going through a tough time. Right now, I am so at my capacity, and I so want to be there for you. However, I have to tell you, I probably can't do a lot of the phone calls and the story sharing right now, but I've got you, and I'm holding you in my heart, and I am sending you positive energy. And if you don't hear from me, or if I can't pick up the call, just know that it's coming from a place of deep love for myself and for you. Because if I can't really be in me, in my peace and my calm, I won't show up for you in the way that I want to. Can you just bear with me on this as I move through my own things? Right. So the more we communicate, like, hey, this is, and they go, yeah, I know where you're at. I know where you're at. And it may be that you have another person in your circle of friends, and you just bring awareness to it. Like, hey, you know what? Don't know if I'm going to be able to be there for this dear friend of mine. And I know you know each other. Can you also be there for her just in case? And, you just kind of get the soul circle sisters together, and we all carry each other home. So yeah, don't overdo it. Don't be your incredible giving self where you give away your energy to someone else when you don't have enough for yourself. I know it's so obvious, and I know you know that, and I know we just all need the reminders that when we're, in our stuff, we've just really got to use a lot of extreme self-care, and discernment. And so I know you're on this, and I feel the love, and I think that there's a lot of people that are probably coming, and will be coming, and maybe new people that will be coming into this whole dynamic to help out. The last thing that comes on that is ask your guides to really help with her guides. And, we can have a huge impact on each other in other realms. If you're in touch with your higher self and your higher self as your guides, you can absolutely still have those conversations in that realm, and have that support in that realm. And that also re-energizes you as well, because it means that you're, elevating yourself out of your own stuff to be in touch with your guides, to have communication with your guides about your stuff. And then you're also showing up for your other friend and also showing up in another realm. So yeah, super powerful, super powerful. All right, if there's any additional questions on that one, let me just quick look at the live stream. Okay, so again, ask questions in the live stream if you're with me live. And if you're on replay, you can go to bethbell.me/question, and I will certainly put you in queue for next week's show. Okay, the next question is, I'm going through divorce mediation and finding it difficult to have such an incredibly broken heart and then have to turn around and be logical about money and property and all the things that come with divorce. How do I do both of them at the same time? Stay in my heart and my head. Well, we're always balancing our heart and our head. A lot of times in like the real traditional 3D world, we're mostly in our heads, unless we have, big love or big heartbreak that brings us into our heart, right? And that's the thing that I love about heartbreak. I don't love heartbreak, but the thing I love about what heartbreak is always teaching us is how to be in our heart, how to be here. And when our heart is broken, there's no escaping that feeling. It's heavy, it's in our chest, it's in our body. We're out of our mind a lot of times, right? That's why people do crazy things during heartbreak. I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying that in general, when our heart's broken, we do crazy things because we're out of our mind. We're not logical. We're very, here. But when we can get that heart and mind balance and connection along with our gut, right? So we can use that instinctual discernment as well. And we can get that circuitry, if you want to say the chakras, but right now I'm thinking more about like the gut and, your third chakra and your soul, your solar plexus home, right? That along with your heart, right? That your heart, you can keep your heart open during this time, but you're also using that discernment with your gut. Like, okay, I'm not giving away everything, right? I'm not giving away the farm. I still want to be in my heart, but utilize my head, right? Which is then the chemicals in the brain and in your thinking process of what makes sense for me, and asking yourself, what do I need, right? It's like that narrative, what do I need? And then saying to yourself, and how do I feel about that? So it's like a constant back and forth of like, what do I want? What do I need? What's fair for me? And then gauging it back to your heart, right? Is that, how do I feel about that? How do I feel if I got that or I didn't get this? And if you're feeling here, it's so much more powerful than if you're working with your mind, because your mind will tell you so many stories and get into so much narrative, and you will be spun around and round and round and round and round. Look, I know this from personal experience. I tell my story about my divorce proceedings in my book, Angels, Herpes, and Psychedelics. It took me 10 years to get divorced. I had no children with this man. And it's challenging because the mind gets involved and there's a lot that happens. Mediation can be wonderful, and it can also be very challenging at the same time because you've got other people's minds involved and their attorneys. And God bless attorneys for all the things that you do that is helpful, but there's more things that are not helpful in a mediation situation. And, you want to rely on your attorney as like your stake in the ground. They can be, but rarely are they. They're not coming potentially from that higher level of consciousness. So I don't want to say you're on your own, because you're not. You are working with your higher self on this. That's the difference, right? And when you're working with your higher self, then we don't have to get into all the disappointment about what the attorney is doing or not doing, because they're not going to be coming from a high place of consciousness. They're going to be coming from a dog eat dog, get as much as you can. And in some cases, a lot of them aren't even about being fair. They're about the fight. That's what a lot of attorneys do. I hope you've not attracted that type of attorney. I hope you've attracted someone who's actually going to be there from a very conscious perspective, and that really listens to the needs of your heart and really helps you to decide on, like, what are really the core things that you feel are going to help you move through this. And letting go letting go of a lot of ideations around it, because there might be an attachment, an unnecessary attachment to one of those things that you think you absolutely need in the mediation. So just stay really anchored in your spiritual practice, in your meditation, in your breathing, because the breathing in through the nose, right? And just bring it into your chest, and it helps to bring your awareness here, as opposed to just like right? Because our mind is just going to keep going and going and going like the Energizer bunny. But when we can drop the energy into here, that's when we can really just feel ourselves a little bit more. I know it's a challenge. It is a challenge. I'm not discounting that at all, but I get the feeling that you're really in this practice already, and that it's just fine tuning some of this so that you can be in that complete heart balance with your mind and with your gut, right? That instinctual gut space. So hopefully that's helpful. I look forward to hearing any additional comments if you want to share anything that comes out of it. I'm always happy to hear how the recommendations may be helping others. All right, let's go on to the next question. My husband and I have been married for over 10 years, and I'm just realizing that we don't really have a lot in common, and I don't know what to do about it. I love him, but we don't do anything together. Should we get a divorce? Kind of a loaded question here, but I do have a lot of information that's coming forward. And that is, we do grow, thank goodness, right, as adults into different people sometimes, vastly different people sometimes. And sometimes there's just like tweaks. And sometimes we haven't changed at all. We just decided that we were going to build a dossier against our partner to say that now we don't like those things, Like I remember when I was dating my ex-husband, but my boyfriend at the time, I was all in for doing the camping thing, right? I would do one weekend a year. I know camping just wasn't my thing, mostly because I was super scared of bears. Like like real camping, like out in the wilderness, like deep in the woods. This was something he liked to do. And I just was so scared of bears that like when we would eat food, I'd be like, oh my gosh, did I drop anything on me? I don't know why. I thought the bears were going to come and tear apart the tent. So I didn't sleep well. It wasn't something I liked to do, but I did it because we were in courtship, and I did it when we first got married. And then one day I was like, I don't want to do this. I never wanted to do this, and I'm not going to do this. Right. So nothing about me changed other than I decided that now this was going to be something that I didn't want to do. And, it's like, how do you communicate about that? It's like, it doesn't have to be a big deal. You just go, oh, okay. So I've just come to my truth that was actually something that I never really liked to do, because I'm sure there's a million things that he did for me that he didn't like to do, that he did just because he knew that it made me happy. Okay. So back to the question. As we grow apart, or we recognize our own truth within, we realize that, hey, we have different interests. And all I'm going to say is go in and start honoring those differences and exploring those differences and being honest about those differences. Like, hey, I don't really like to go into the wilderness because I'm scared of bears, and I would love nothing more than for you to find, a wonderful guy friend that would go in there and do it with you. I know you have this dream about me as your wife doing this, but it's not in my wheelhouse anymore. And I'm choosing to tell you the truth other than to go and then be grumpy. Right. Or maybe it's that he loves baseball and you've never loved baseball. Well, maybe you just don't go to the baseball game, but you ask some questions about baseball and you watch for the sparkles in his eyes about what he talks about, and you enjoy his enjoyment, not focus on the disparity of like, well, I don't like baseball, right? So just start finding the fun places about your disparity, the fun places about what you don't like to do, and just really honor that, hey, you like to cycle and I like to yoga. And, just see those as really nice balances, because if you look at it more from a masculine, feminine energy perspective, there is a balance that needs to take place. And so if you guys are different, I think that's great. Maybe he likes to get up early and you like to get up late, or you go to bed at different times, then compensate for that. Like if you want to have that intimate time, then figure out, how you can meet each other, someplace there that makes sense for both of you to still be able to get up and go to sleep at the times that you like to do that. So we don't have to focus on the things we don't like. We need to actually feel into those things and observe how those activities make our partners feel, and really just honor that and let them have those fun moments, and so that they'll also let you have yours, right? Okay, let's go on to the next question. My father's dying, and I'm surprised at the intensity of the grief and my neurological system response. It's like I'm having a massive freak out. And I understand the process of death. I'm awake and aware, but I'm just surprised that this is so difficult. And my husband feels bad because he doesn't know what to do for me. How can I move through this? Well, this is always probably going to be the same answer, that we need to be in our heart and allow our heart to bleed and cry it out and really sit with the emotion that's coming through. And then there's a time to get some of the more spiritual lessons of it, right? So if you're wanting to calm your nervous system, if this is, something that's just really gotten you wrapped up beyond, it's the grief and beyond the grief, and if you're ready to then look a little bit more into it, what's coming to me is that, the masculine energy provides a sense of safety for the feminine. And I feel that your father is that safety net for you. And, maybe even more so than your husband. And so losing your father is terrifying. It sounds like you have experience with death. You understand death. You're very expanded in your consciousness and your awareness. But that does not take away the terrifying thought of losing your safety net, losing your father, losing that masculine energy. And it may be that your husband isn't really doing what you need, and not because he doesn't want to, but maybe you're not allowing him to. Maybe that's been a crux for a long time between the two of you, of not letting your husband be that safety net, that masculine, for whatever reason. And so losing your father is, first honor the feelings and the genuineness of just, losing someone, the grieving of that, but then also move into, well, maybe this provides an opportunity for me to see my husband in a different light, to allow him to be in his masculine, to really support me. And maybe I haven't allowed him to do that over the years because my dad had that role, or my husband didn't play the role in the way that my dad did. And so I'm not going to let him do it, or maybe we've shoved him down. We all know about these, issues that we have from our programming from childhood, right? We marry our dads or not, right? There's that link back to our expectation of the masculine figures in our life. And a lot of it has to do with either the wounds or the well of love that our fathers gave to us. And if you're lucky to have a father that actually, was very strong in his masculine, did provide, did support, then that expectation gets placed onto other masculine figures in your life, like a husband. And sometimes we raise the bar so high that it's impossible for them to meet it, just because it's in our imagination that they should be reaching this bar, as opposed to just really letting them be who they are and show their masculine in their way, not your dad's way. So yeah, I think there's a lot of really, dare I say, good, juicy stuff here. And I mean that from a full heart. And I mean that from a place of growth and expansion, because whenever we have heartbreak like this, especially with a death of a parent, when that heart breaks open, so much light can come in, and it just puts us right into our bodies in a way that we can't ignore. And there's probably a lot of good stuff that's going to come out of bleeding that good old heart out and allowing yourself to just feel it and cry through it and be with it, and allow your husband to support you in a way that you haven't before. That's what's really coming through, is that allow other masculine figures, if you're not married, for other listeners, find other masculine figures that you'll allow to be that safety net for you. It doesn't mean you have to rely on other people. You're always going to be connecting up to source intelligence and your higher self. However, that's why we're here as a human, is to be in community with others and to be in relationship with others, and especially, to allow us to balance ourselves in the masculine and feminine energy. So it's a big important time. And I have a feeling too that you're going to be helping a lot of others with these types of transitions in the future. So you're doing a great job, and you're doing the work, and just keep doing the breathing and whatever technique has been working for you to just calm that nervous system down, and take as many hugs as you can. All right, let's go on to the next question. Okay. I feel like I'm ready to have a guru. How do I find or attract one for my spiritual journey? Well, I have good news for you. The guru is inside of you. So you've already got a guru. And I'm not discounting the idea of gurus from the sense that, there's always people who are in expanded states of consciousness that can help us see things from that higher perspective and realm. So it's good to have other people in our lives that help us see things through the lens of expansion. But it's always going to be continuing to go deep within and really being in touch with your own inner guru, your own inner wisdom, and connecting up to source, right? And when and if you're ready, that person will come. That person of support that you want to call a guru, and that's fine. Just, I would warn and caution that you don't give your power away to someone else to say they are more than me, they know more than I. Yes, they may be reflecting some expanded states of consciousness, and they may understand how everything works a little bit more than you at this time, space, reality, but they're only there to help you remember who you really are. So you already have it all inside of you. You already knew all this before you came into this lifetime. You've set yourself up for this journey to learn all these beautiful lessons along the way, and to call in all these beautiful souls to help you remember who you really are. And so a guru or someone who has that expanded state of consciousness is just there to shine the light for you to see who you really are. And it's not about them. And I know you know that. So just really stay focused on that concept. All right. I think we're down to the end here. If there's any other questions, let me quick look on the questions. Hold on. We've got some live ones coming in. Okay, not a question, but love the plants and flowers in the background. Thank you for sharing them with us. Yes, thank you for noticing these beautiful flowers. They're giving such an incredible aroma. I love that. They are very helpful. Get out of our stories in our heads. I should get flowers more often. Yes, I actually get flowers every week. I try my very best to have flowers in the house. And I also have flowers right outside my door. And so I love them as well. They just really offer that vibration and the beauty of color and smell and so much. So yeah, I highly encourage that. And you can photograph them right in your house. So, all right. If you go to bethbell.me, we've got some new things that have just recently launched. The State of the Heart Assessment. We've got the Psychedelic Resource Guide, the Herpes Handbook, the Awakening and Healing Handbook, plus the bonus of the 5 Pearls of Wisdom workbook. So many good things. Please head over there. And if you want to ask a question for next week, you can ask on bethbell.me/question. I'm so excited that you're here each week, and I look forward to seeing you next week and answering your live questions at 11:11 on Sundays Pacific time. Until then, wishing you much bliss and love. Namaste.